You know what the most dangerous thing in America is, right? Nigga with a library card.
This is the Most Dangerous Thing in America podcast, show in which we read books by Black authors, and they are talked about by a Black author. And you can listen if you are Black or not Black. That is okay. This week on the podcast, as promised, we are doing A Master of Djinn, D-J-I-N-N, which is like a supernatural being. I didn't look up in which folklore, actually. I just went with like what was written here by the author, Djeli Clark, Djeli Clark. So, yeah, maybe I should have looked it up, but the lore of the book is so good that I'm just going to roll with it. I'm assuming that it's from Arab culture, the Middle East, because that's where the book is set. So let's get into what the book is about. The book is set in Egypt and turn of the 20th century, so like early 1900s, steampunk. And in this world, supernatural beings have come to live alongside mortals. And there's many different types of supernatural beings. So in Egypt, there's Djinn. And then there's like different types of Djinn, like Marids and egrets, which I believe is still a type of Djinn. Yes. I'm not going to get the lore completely right. It's very well done in the book. So all of these different creatures were unleashed by a Sudanese mystic, El Jahiz, and decades ago. Yes, decades ago, and then he like disappeared. So now there's a ministry, something like the Men in Black ministry, whatever that's called in that book. There's a ministry that like looks after these supernatural beings, and doesn't like police them, but just polices things in general that happen with mortals and supernatural beings living in the same space. So we followed the detective Fatma, who is one of the first women to work for the ministry, and she's also like the best. We follow her. She's in Cairo. That's her beat. And while she's doing her regular stuff, she's already been involved in some huge cases before. She's a known quantity around Cairo in that sense. But while she's doing her regular stuff, a local British subject who lives in Egypt and is obsessed with Al-Jahiz and all of this kind of supernatural stuff, he's killed. Lord Worthington, he's killed, and so are all of his, like, not followers, but brothers. They're in a brotherhood who study the supernatural stuff. So the plot of the novel is that Detective Fatma Inspector Fatma, is trying to solve the murder of Lord Worthington, and very quickly we learn that like the person who killed Lord Worthington is supposedly the resurrected Al-Jahiz. So that's the plot. I won't give anything else away. I think that's all we need to talk about it. So yeah, first of all, so let's just talk about what I like. Number one, the world building is awesome, So it's steampunk and it's set in Egypt. And so you got a real mix of cultures, right? You've got obviously the Egyptian Berber, I believe, is still in Egypt. So Berber, / Arabic culture. You got that. You have some Black Americans there. You have English folks there. You got some other Europeans there. You got Sudanese. You have other West African people later in the book. So you got a melange that's really cool, but the center of it is certainly Arabic culture. And that's what's really great is like, I picked up this book because it was obviously written by a Black author. And that's the podcast. And I didn't know it was going to be steampunk, but from the cover, you can kind of see that. And I knew that a Djinn was some kind of supernatural character. So I was like, oh, this is cool. It's going to have like, speculative fiction with like Black characters. Which it does. It has a couple of Black characters, but really it centers it on Egyptian characters. And that's also cool. So that was awesome. And at the center of that then is Islam. And it was cool to see just Islam like casually portrayed, you know? Like, hey, here's some people who are detectives. Oh, yeah, they believe in Islam. That's cool. I don't believe in any religion whatsoever. But, how many movies have you seen where, like, it's like the guy goes into a church and he meets a father or something. Not a father, a priest, does a confession in an action movie or something like that. But this is like that version of that, just like, all right, I'm just stopping off. I got to do my prayers. Like, and that happens a couple times in the book. It's just cool to see. And it's not talked about in some like, it's done perfectly. It's not talked about like, hey, this is an important part of the book. It's just like, these people exist and do this. So this is who they are. And then they move on and do the rest of what they do. So that part's cool. Love that. I do like the other like, so that's like a backdrop thing that's going on. This isn't overt, but okay. The idea that women couldn't be in like these kinds of positions, like inspectors and whatnot, that's overtly talked about, but it's not like a theme of the book. But it is in the book, and that's also really well done too, because it doesn't subsume the book and become all that the book is about. Same with like the Black characters from America, or the dark-skinned characters who are in Egypt, who are being discriminated against in Egypt for being dark. It's commented on in the book, but then we get a whole plot, outside of that as well. So like, that's not what's driving the plot forward, but it's very obvious that these discriminatory things are happening and that these people are trying to make it in a society that's stacked against them. So I just really liked Mr. Clark's craft with that, Societal issues are there. These things are happening. It's a fact. It doesn't overwhelm the book, but it's not ignored either. So I liked that. And then at the center of the book, Fatma is in a relationship with a woman. And that's also just like, hey, this is just happening, like that's like the best possible sign. You just pick up a book and there are characters speaking Arabic and they're practicing Islam. And one of them's in a relationship with a woman, or one woman is in a relationship with another woman. And these things are just like normal, It's not like some spectacular thing or whatever. Just like, yep, this is the book we're reading. Really love that. And to that end, like, this is also the kind of book, this is the kind of thing they should make into a movie, rather than like, oh, we're going to have like Black James Bond, or I know I have this long-standing gripe, but it's like, we're going to make James Bond Black. We're going to make Spider-Man Mexican. All right, yeah, you can do that. That's fine, cool. I mean, whatever. I don't care. I don't like those movies anyway. I watch them, but it's not like I'm not, that's not my main thing. Something like this, however, which just has its own lore and is completely constructed by a Black person and about, in this case, not Black people, but African people, right? People on the continent of Africa. That I'd much rather see this than like, oh, James Bond is Black now. Yeah, whatever. Like, I'd rather see this as a movie. This is more interesting. So, yeah, I love the casual nature in which the author was able to tie in all these different aspects of society that are going on around him or around the characters. I loved the world building, like I said. The steampunk is really cool. The different supernatural figures are great. The lore is awesome. As with Cadwell Turnbull's book, No Gods, No Monsters, and Marlon James's series of novels, like after reading black leopard, red wolf, or whatever. Leopard's already black. Black wolf, red leopard, something like that. After reading both of those books, one of the first things I wanted to do was just like, I want to go study mythology. I want to go look up all this different mythology. So I think it's a really great thing when you're introduced to new characters and new worlds, and they make you want to keep like researching that world. I wanted to do what the author obviously already did, which was research all these different types of supernatural figures and all these other cultures that aren't centered in America, and learn about them and then incorporate them. But he already did that. But it's still cool, so it's awesome. So yeah, love that part about it. And then so that was great. Setting's great. Incorporation of the elements is great. Good story, good plot, everything like that. If I had one, thing to say against it, I did feel like the book was lagging in parts, but I think that may have been, and this is like gonna sound like, bullshit in a way, but I was really tired, and I read the book almost exclusively at night because I was reading a different book during the day. So it may have just been like the time of night I was reading it. But there was a section where, probably from like page 150 to 250, where I was kind of like, all right, maybe this could be a little bit faster. It wasn't a slog, but like I wanted it to be a bit faster. That being said, by the time I got to the end, I was very satisfied and enjoyed the entire book. The only other thing was the first chapter also threw me off because I cracked open the book and I'm reading from the perspective of a white British man from like the early 1900s. And I was like, I really don't want to read this. Not because I won't read a book that's written in that perspective, but that's just not what I thought this book was. And that man is promptly consumed by a fire that kills every single person in the room besides him. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll keep reading. But yeah, for those first few pages, I was like, oh man, this is what this is going to be? I didn't know that's what this is going to be. It may be a case, even with me saying like, oh, it was slow in parts, of just expecting it to be one thing and then it being another. But overall, a really fun ride. I will be definitely locking into his next book. He's written several shorter novellas, which, maybe I'll check those out too. The Black God's Drum and the Haunting of Tram Car 015. Yeah, I'll check those out, man. That sounds great. And like I said, Marlon James, I've read most of what Marlon James ever written. Love him, but specifically that series I'm locked into. I know that the second book in Cadwell Turnbull's trilogy has come out, so I need to get that. Actually, that'll be the next book in the podcast. There you go. Lock that in. And then, whenever this man writes another book, I'll be all over that. Oh, and also a Children of Blood and Bone. I need to get into that as well, because I believe that's finishing up. So there you go. Yeah, there's the next couple books that we'll do in the podcast. Cadwell Turnbull's second book of his trilogy and The Children of Blood and Bone. Finish that up for the speculative fiction by Black authors. So, and that's perfect because it's fall. So spooky season. But anyway, pick this book up. It's great. Came out a couple months ago. Fantastic read. Awesome world. Interesting stuff going on. Definitely pick it up. All right, that's going to do it for today. The music here is by TheKeepRunning, so check him out in the show notes. Check me out in the show notes. My website's there. You can send me a message. If you got recommendations for books, that's awesome. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment. Try to be nice. If you're not, whatever, I don't care. But recommendations for books would really be the best thing. If you do leave a comment, leave a recommendation for a book. Nicely. If you're gonna be not nice, please be funny, right? So none of the come with something good. That's all I'm saying. Don't read any weak shit. And I'm talking about your comments, but also your recommendations. Okay. I don't think there's, subscribe, obviously, Spotify, what is it? Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, all of that. Rate, review, do that, follow us, etc. And until next time, stay safe, stay black, and keep reading.
This time enough at last. That's not fair. That's not fair at all. There was time now. There was all the time I needed. That's not fair. That's not fair.